I'd like to now introduce you to Weave's very own Skye Povey, Vice President of Sales here at Weave, the premier customer communication platform for service-based business, where he grew the sales team from 10 people to over 200 people in under 2 years and doubled revenue 3 years in a row. Without further ado, here's Skye to discuss how tech went from a luxury to a must for small business.
I'm really excited to be a part of the Business Growth Summit. Working with small business owners is something I'm really passionate about. It's something that I love to do, and for a couple reasons. One of which is that I actually had the opportunity to grow up with a small business owner. My mother, she owned her own small business, and so ever since I was a little kid, I was able to kind of see what it's like to have employees, run a business, the stresses of changes and competition. And it was just something that I was able to observe and kind of see how she juggled all those things. And the other part is, since a young age as well, I've always known that I wanted to help people. It's this thing where it's just come from within since I was a kid. I didn't know how, I didn't know why. I just felt like I really wanted to make an impact on others. I wanted to help them be better and help change their lives, and didn't know how I would do it, but I always knew it was there. Through high school and college, I thought maybe it was to be a doctor, and my freshman year of college took a bunch of entry-level pre-med classes and tried to go down that path, ended up changing and going different ways, and didn't know exactly how I would fulfill that, right? I knew what I wanted to accomplish. I guess I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I had the opportunity to learn from one of my best friends still to this day, and one of the biggest examples I look up to, and that was in my college football coach. It was the way that he did things, it was the passion he had for it, and I think the number one thing I learned from him was that leadership really is one of the most sacred callings that you can have. You have the opportunity as a leader to impact other people's lives, oftentimes on a daily basis. And that's what excites me about working with small business owners. You're leaders. That's what you do. You have employees that each and every day come into work for you, and you can help make their day. You can help help them in their career path, and that's why I just have really always had a passion to help small businesses grow, and why I think that it's just something that's near and dear to my heart. Well, with that being said, something that's kind of an interesting trend, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware as small business owners, is that the percentage of Americans that are working for small businesses has continued to decline over the past 10 to 15 years. As you can see in this graph right here, that's gone all the way down from 52% down to about 48% just over the past 5 to 10 years, and it continues to decline as we speak. And the question has to be posed, why? Why is it that small business, it's always been a big part of our country, built on entrepreneurs and business owners. It's right now the amount of Americans that show up to work for a small business continues to go down. And this was a study that was done by Harvard Business Review that kind of helps highlight that. You can see there that from 1980 to 1990, the difference between small and large corporations was pretty similar. And then all of a sudden there's just this big spike, and in the late 90s it just starts to take off, where the gap is continually growing between small and large companies. And it was something that in that study done by Harvard, they wanted to not only know what was causing the decline, but also to try to kind of isolate it. An interesting stat was they found one of the biggest reasons between the two is that the profit margin gaps between small and large businesses has continued to grow. As you can see right here, from 1970 to 1990, there was about a 15% difference. Right there, that's the difference between margin from a large to a small company. And now you fast forward to the 2000s, and there's a 35% gap. So, in summary, in its most simple form, it's that these larger companies over the past 10 to 15 years have found a way to increase their profits, while small businesses, for whatever reason, haven't quite figured that out. This was something that in a very recent study done by Google, Google partnered there with Deloitte, and they did a study on over 2,000 small businesses. And they wanted to dive into this exactly. what is it that's causing large corporations to become more profitable at a continual rate? However, these small businesses are struggling to find that profit. And it really came down to one thing, a pretty simple answer, and it was technology. If you remember back to that graph where there was kind of a similar growth difference between large and small companies all through the 80s and even through the early 90s. But as the internet became bigger, as technology came onto the scene, that's when this huge spike took off. And that's when these gaps started growing. These large companies started finding huge profit in using technology, leveraging it, and being able to apply it to their business model. In that same study done by Google there on those 2,000 businesses, the other thing that was really interesting is they found that today 80% of all small businesses are underutilizing technology. 80%. And the other interesting finds on that, I mean, on the upside, of the 20% that are using them, they found that they actually on average make 2 times the amount of revenue per employee. Not only are they making 2 times the amount of revenue per employee, but their year-over growth on average is 4 times greater. So all signs are indicating towards technology is helping large businesses become more profitable, and it's also helping the small businesses that are using it become more profitable. So we'd have to stop and kind of ask ourselves the question, well, why is it that we think not all small businesses would leverage technology, right? You know, the facts, the data kind of tells us that it's helpful, that it's important. And a couple really interesting numbers in that study done is it was roughly 78 to 80% of small businesses surveyed said that they didn't feel that technology was relevant to their business. You know, in 2020, that seems something that is a little interesting, right? We live in a world that's so digital. We live with, you know, people with cell phones and people hop into smart cars, and the technology is such a huge part of our life. However, for whatever reason, roughly 80% of them seem to think that technology wasn't relevant to their business. Another stat of there that really jumped out to me was that 70% of them actually said the reason that they haven't adopted it was because they felt that their staff, either themselves or their staffs, were not, you know, tech savvy enough to apply it to their business. They felt that if they were to try to adopt some type of technology or use it in their practice, that you know, maybe their staff wouldn't know how to use it and they'd waste money on it, or that it would be too difficult to learn and it would be a waste of time anyways. And the third one, the third largest reason, had to do with cost. Interestingly enough, even though a lot of stats indicated that technology makes them more profitable, you know, roughly 30 to 40% of small business owners said that it's too expensive. They said that they have not applied technology to their business because they feel that the cost of it is too great. So what I'd like to do today with you guys is share the top, you know, the 3 things that we think makes a great technology. We call it the 3 E's of great technology. The first one is efficient. So technology can make your business efficient in a lot of ways. I'd like to highlight 2 in particular. The first one is time. Time is your greatest asset, right? As a business owner, your greatest asset by far and away is your time. It is what are you doing with your time? What is your staff doing with their time? And that's where an interesting word comes in, automation, right? I think oftentimes we hear that and people get scared that automation is going to replace them. However, that's simply not the case. What automation often does is it takes kind of those mundane or those kind of mindless tasks, and it can offset that, do it through technology, so then you and your staff can do what you're best at, right? Being creative, solving complex problems. So it really helps you use an efficient use of your time. And then the second one, a very important one as well, is data, right? It's making smart choices. It's really hard to know exactly what's going wrong or what could be more efficient if you don't have the information to make that decision. You know, you can't master what you don't measure. And so if you want to improve something in your business, you need to be able to benchmark it. You need to be able to understand, you know, where there may be leaks in the funnel or where it might not work as well as it could. Make some changes, and then, you know, maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks later, revisit that and see, is there improvements there? And technology does a really great job of that. It takes a lot of different data points or a lot of different complex numbers and puts them into a very easy to digest format so you can take a look at it and understand how could I make my business more efficient. The second one is easy. So if you remember, a lot of small business owners are avoiding technology because of their fear of adoption, right? They think it would be too hard to train to their staff. And I would say that this is more true in small business, maybe even than in large enterprises, because as a small business owner, you wear so many hats. You and your staff are doing so many different things. And to implement a really clunky or complex software system doesn't make a lot of sense. What would end up usually happening in those scenarios is you get it, you try to understand it, it makes your life more difficult, and so you stop using it anyways. And that's when it would be, I think as we could all agree, a waste of money. That's why, for me, the second E of great technology for small businesses is easy. It's got to be something that's intuitive. It's got to be something that you can pick it up and you can learn it quickly, and then it becomes part of your everyday life. And the last one, and potentially the biggest one, is experience. We live in a world where people almost expect to be able to use technology. They expect to be able to communicate with you via technology. And so often now, to communicate with a small business or to interact with them, you have to, pick up a phone or call them, or, you couldn't shoot them a text, or the experience. It's just that experience that is there might be lacking. And this is a kind of an interesting one for me because it actually helps amplify what your biggest advantage is as a small business owner. As these large organizations, pop up locations across the country or big box retailers, the one thing they can't do that you can is offer a great experience, right? It's that family feel. It's that you know who they are. It's that you recognize their kids. Those are the type of things that make small businesses unique and make them grow. So using technology to kind of just help make sure that the communication or that the experience they have is not only personal through your personal touch, but is easy for them through technology, it makes a really big difference on small business. So my challenge to you, and it's still the start of a new year in 2020, is to take a look at your business, take a look at the stats and realize, according to Google, one of the largest technology companies in the world, 80% of small businesses aren't utilizing technology well enough. And ask yourself, are you? And if you're not, how could you? Right? How could you implement something this year that's going to help your business grow? Right? We live in a very competitive world now where you're not just competing with the other local business across the street. You're competing at times on a global scale, or you're competing against a huge company that's really cutting costs. And helping small businesses continue to compete and stay relevant is something that I think is very passionate for, is something I'm very passionate about, and something here at Weave that we take a lot of pride in, is arming you with the necessary tools so that you can continually compete and grow your small business, because we know that's so important for our economy and for our future. Thank you.